It's only in the Bible that David will kill Goliath. In the business space, what we'll be reading is, and Goliath plucked out the head of David. Because the incumbents in the business space, it is war. They will off you. And there's something called the war of attrition. War of attrition means that dollar for dollar, for every 1,000 naira you want to spend to wage war head to head with them, they are willing to spend $10,000. So how does a small business survive? Eventually, when they're done with you, your valuation reduces and they now buy you out. Indomie noodles have become the generic name, and so you now come from somewhere. So even the other ones are struggling. Even Bam Bam Lala, they have put a lot of money into advertising. At a point, the song Bam Bam Lala was everywhere. We did a survey. We give children money and say, go and buy the noodles attached to this song at the point of purchase. When they sing the song, Honeywell noodles, Bam Bam Lala, Bam Bam Lala. When they get to the point of purchase, they say, Mommy, I do Indomie. And you know what is even funny? The woman herself doesn't even know. She will now say which type of Indomie, because to her, Indomie is the generic name for all of them. One startup will now come and say, I have a product that will face Indomie noodles head to head. Your startup will not start. There's a science to disruption. If you don't understand that science, your startup engine never starts. A lot of people, when it comes to innovation, they think it's technology. They always think that innovation has to come with technology. I tell people I am innovating in my space, but it's not technology I'm using. I'm using humor. And it has worked so well that we've touched at least one of the top 3 organizations in every major sector. Innovation is also not one breakthrough idea that nobody has heard of before. So when we say innovation is novel, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is something nobody has heard of before. It means that it is novel to the market. Innovation doesn't have to be gigantic. Sometimes it's just implemental. We are taught to pass. We are not taught to critique. Innovation requires a lot of curiosity and critical thinking.
It's another episode of the Frankly Business Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, you know how we do it here. We bring down business, we break down businesses for you to understand what is really happening across the Nigerian business landscape. And it's really, really a great day because today we're taking a look at what is happening with a particular sector. Let's really talk about consulting, but consulting the way away from what you understand about consulting. It's different from the norm where you have people who have been able to trailblaze different industry. And that's what we always do on the Frankly Business Podcast. We bring people who have their skin in the game, not just people who talk the talk, but people who walk the talk, and people who are industry players, and they've been able to trailblaze different sector and different industries. That is one of the objectives of the Frankly Business Podcast. And you know that we make business education really accessible. That's one of the major objectives of the podcast as well. Kelechi, business education really accessible because the African business landscape, there's a massive gap, and that gap needs to be filled because monies are coming. We're seeing that a lot of investors are really attracted to the African to the African market. And with those monies coming and investors seeing Africa as a hotbed for their investment, the knowledge has to be available for people. The knowledge, we need to fill that knowledge gap so that when the money comes, people will be able to know what to do with the money and how to scale their businesses. What's your take about the objective of the Frankly Business Podcast?
So,
Yeah.
good day. So while preparing for this, I was doing a research, and I found out that when you say investors are coming,
Yeah.
people look at it from the tech standpoint and big company standpoint. But I was doing a research, and I saw that 8 out of 10 Nigerians are self-employed, and so self-employed Nigerians meaning they own their own businesses.
Yeah.
And those guys don't have business education. You see people that read microbiology, they are going into business. People that read political science are going into business. So the question is, how can they get access to business education? And that's why podcasts like this is very vital. And in the podcast landscape, you can see that a lot of podcasts are out there dishing out my boyfriend and my girlfriend.
True.
But yeah, we're just talking. It's an evergreen content because children, the young generation, would come up, get the education from me, and use it to better run their businesses. So if I'm in the informal sector, I know how to employ people, then take the 2 people to 5 people to 10 to 15 to 20 to build a company.
Ladies and gentlemen, I love to read this. Kelechi, this intro, I need to read it. Sit up, or I beg, because this person we have here is a heavyweight. Apart from the fact that he's a heavyweight, I love his humility. You can feel it, you can touch it. It's palpable. It's not. It's someone who has been able to work with top brands, the biggest and biggest of brands, and as a matter of fact, he's worked with every big brand in all sectors in this country. Every big brand in all sectors in this country. That's something that no be moi moi. That's how I'll put it. So who we have today is somebody. He's a doctor in the making. As a matter of fact, doctor of letters in the making. We have Dr. Demola Aderibigbe, who is an innovation lead, a business humorist, author, and PhD scholar on strategic management and innovation. He's a business pundit. As a business pundit, he describes himself as a business pundit one, and is an intersection between cognitive, creative, and comedic thinking in Nigeria's management consulting space. He's been able to turn complex business challenges into actionable light bulb moments with lots and lots of laughter when you're learning business concepts, and that is going to bring that to the Frankly Business Podcast. Following his bachelor's degree and degree in business, as well as over a decade of dynamic experiences in corporate education, business and branding, he's become one of the crucial and one of the I love to say a force in the consulting space. He thereafter co-founded Lala Consulting, an innovation consulting and creative training company that has disrupted business as usual in the corporate setting. So he's been able to disrupt the way Nigerians learn business, and he's been able to disrupt consulting in a corporate setting and bring in comedy when you're learning and you're really enjoying the learning process on the go. And for him to be able to have couple of big top Nigerian clients across the length and breadth of different sectors in this country under his belt, it tells you that he's doing something that no one is doing in this country. I love to call him Coach Lala, but he has said that I should not call him Coach Lala. So we have Dr. Demola Aderibigbe, who is very much on our famous couch on the Frankly Business Podcast. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
I love the conversation we are having with regards to business education, and you also making reference to the fact that innovation. And I would like to say that I've been in the Nigerian education space from primary, secondary, university, both as a student and as also as a member of staff. And one major thing that is lacking is innovation. Because we are taught to pass. We are taught to pass. We are not taught to critique. Innovation requires a lot of curiosity and critical thinking. If you schooled in a Nigerian university, and sometimes you don't serve, oftentimes if you don't serve your lecturers what they've served you, you are creative about it, they will serve you an extra year. Basically. And I'm sure as people listen to this, a lot of people can relate with what I'm saying, because that's the reality. So standardized testing has sort of put people in a box where whatever you give to us is what we should give to you back. And meanwhile, the business space, for you to thrive, there are lots of incumbents in every industry.
True.
It's only in the Bible that David will kill Goliath. It's only in the Bible. In the business space, what we'll be reading is, and Goliath plucked out the head of David. It's only the Bible, because the incumbents in the business space, it is war. They will off you. They will off you. And there's something called the war of attrition. War of attrition means that dollar for dollar, for every 1,000 naira you want to spend to wage war head to head with them, they are willing to spend $10,000. So how does a small business survive?
So they can burn cash just to
They will
take you
burn
off.
cash just to, and you know what? Eventually, when they're done with you, your valuation reduces and they now buy you out.
I think that's what Apple and Microsoft do a lot.
Yes, even Meta.
Yeah.
They did that to WhatsApp, did that to Instagram.
Head to head. You can't go head to head. So when you read people saying, you know what, I'm coming to the market, and I'm wondering, so for instance, let's take the noodle business.
Yeah.
You know, we have market leaders, we have market challengers, then we have market followers. Then, as I speak to you, in Nigeria, noodles, case in point, we're doing something for Dangote noodles, sometimes the company I represented in 2013. And we're doing a cooking demonstration because Dangote pasta then used to coagulate.
Yeah.
When you cook it,
Yeah,
it
very
coagulates.
true.
So they did reformulation and did a relaunch of the product. Now we have to do cooking demonstration across Nigeria. And so they said, let's take Dangote noodles with us. So that as we're relaunching pasta, we're also relaunching Dangote noodles. So we got into Sapele, and while we're doing the cooking demonstration, somebody passed and said, sorry, what did they do for you? And I said, cooking demonstration of, Dangote noodles. And he said, the word noodles was strange to him. So he said, Dangote, they put cement inside small pack. So I'm like, no, but I can't call the name of the brand he is familiar with, because that has become the generic name of the line.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, well, you know what? No worry. When the cook when she commode the cake, you go see him. Immediately the cook unwrapped the cake and brought out the cake. The guy now said, "Oh, you for talk say Dangote Indomie," and it was instructive. Indomie noodles had become the generic name to describe that SKU.
That product, yeah.
And so you now come from somewhere. So even the other ones are struggling. Even Bam Bam Lala, that put a lot of money, into advertising. At a point, the song Bam Bam Lala was everywhere. But when we did a survey, we give children money and say, go and buy the noodles attached to this song. At the point of purchase, when they sing the song, Bam, Honeywell, noodles, Bam Bam Lala, Bam Bam Lala. When they get to the point of purchase, they say, Mommy, I do Indomie. And you know what is even funny? The woman herself doesn't even know. She will not say which type of Indomie, because to her, Indomie is the generic name for all of them. So you now tell a small business, one startup will now come and say, I want to go and face, and I have a product that will face Indomie noodles to it. Your startup will not start. It will never start.
Well, let me make a case for them.
Okay.
Paystack did it. Flutterwave did it. And that time, InterSwitch was in the market then before they came in and disrupted.
Okay.
I'm just trying to make a case not
Yes,
to discourage
but
small business.
I like the fact that you said before they came to what? Disrupt. There's a science to disruption.
I want to know the science.
If you don't understand that science, your engine, your startup engine, it will never start.
Okay, so what's the science?
Okay, so firstly, we have to set a foundation, because every time you talk about disruption, you must always talk about innovation. Always talk about innovation. However, there are myths to innovation that is not making a lot of people take advantage of it. For instance, a lot of people, when it comes to innovation, they think it's technology. They always think that innovation has to come with technology. I tell people I am innovating in my space, but it's not technology I'm using. I'm using humor. And it has worked so well that we've touched at least one of the top 3 organizations in every major sector of the Nigerian economy. Humor, and I'm using humor in consulting, management consulting, humor and gamification. It's not technology. Does technology enable it? Of course. However, also realize that research by McKinsey showed that there's no positive or negative correlation between companies that put a lot of money into R&D in terms of innovation and the return on that innovation. Because beyond technology, there are quite a number of other things that has to be innovated. For instance, if we talk about innovation and all we're thinking is technology, then you would realize that companies that don't play the technology space can never innovate. That's what you're saying.
Hmm.
So it is not, innovation is not necessarily just technology. Then innovation is also not one breakthrough idea that nobody has heard of before. It's not. So when we say innovation is novel, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is something nobody has heard of before. It means that it is novel to the market. And sometimes your market is just it's just small size of the market. So, and innovation doesn't have to be gigantic. Sometimes it's just incremental. So if you have this at the back of your mind, you now take it and ask yourself, you're innovating for a reason. You're innovating because of the customers. So incumbents have huge market share. They always have huge market share. However, incumbents cannot meet the needs of the entire market. They can never meet the need. There's a market that they are not meeting that need, a subset of the market they are not meeting the need, or they are underserving that market. So the goal for someone coming in is to look at that market that they are not serving or underserving and ask yourself, how do I serve this particular market in such a way that I become the market leaders to that particular segment of the market? Let's use a case in point. So, for instance, let's take the financial services.
Yes, ma'am.
So, the traditional banks, the market leaders are the Zenith, the First, the GT. These are the market leaders.
Yeah.
They are the big boys. Now, there are other businesses, there are other brands like FCMB. I'm sure FCMB is not a market leader in the banking space.
No.
I stand to be corrected.
Yeah.
I'm certain. However, a lot of people don't realize that they looked at that space and realized that while we may not be able to meet compete head to head directly with these big guys, there are subsets of the market that we can become market leaders in. So let me first use Lapo. Lapo came into the space, and instead of focusing on the traditional banking that these guys are doing, they focused on small businesses. Let us be the go-to people for small businesses when it comes to loans. So if you think about Lapo, what comes to your mind?
Very true.
Is loans for small businesses.
Their brand is heavy, man.
Are you telling me consulting? It's major. Now, while people are looking at the big businesses and thinking, Lapo took on the small businesses and started with some people started capital at 5,000 naira. And they started with them at 5,000 naira. Their businesses are worth over 500 million. And it was Lapo that grew them to that point. So they are loyal to Lapo. Because when those other banks did not look at them, Lapo saw them. So now back to FCMB. So FCMB decided to create another brand, most unknown to most people, and said, okay, while Lapo is servicing loans to small businesses, we service civil servants with loans. And that FCMB business is called Credit Direct.
Wow.
And one of their key partners, Nigerian Police Force.
You will make careful, sir. Kelechi, do anyhow, you still make careful.
Nigerian Police Force.
If you work in the civil service, anyhow it goes, your salary will be paid eventually.
True.
Do you understand? Eventually, that salary will be paid. And so it's a good market because you're certainty of the income. The volume might not be much, but the frequency is sure. And so they plugged into that. And so when it comes to loans for a lot of small businesses, they're not going to traditional banks. They do Lapo. When it comes to loans for civil servants, they do Credit Direct. So you see how innovation takes a place in disruption. There's a way to play. But as you now see it, as it is now, if we that are not necessarily now maybe big players with the traditional banks, when we think of wanting to do loans, you are sure that you are easily able to get a loan from a Lapo than you are able to get it from the traditional banks.
Yeah, true.
And that is it.
But Lapo should come and give us our check. This is free
This is-
PR.
no, that's why I
Yeah.
asked you. Should I
Yeah, why not? I
But I'm
get it.
just
I
kidding.
get
This
it,
is
I get
free PR. But they could argue that I've seen so many young CEO go through the I want to come and disrupt space, and it cloud their mentality that when you are building something, if you tend to the data, every data you see, you want it to be pleasing to you. So how do you disconnect them from that angle and say, okay, you need to start focusing on other aspects to get data so you can make better decisions?
Thank you. So there's a model called the Shuari model. The Shuari, Shu means learn, Ha means bend, Bri means break. You cannot disrupt a space you've not played in. Because it's in playing in it that you get data. Do you understand? And so when I see someone comes and says, I'll give you a case in point. So I'd worked in corporate consulting, from business consulting to brand consulting for about 10 years, over 10 years. And consistently, I noticed that when it comes to learning and development, there was something majorly lacking. It reminded me sometimes of going back to uni when the lecturer just wants to finish his syllabus and he's just running next slide, we are done. And once they say it's time to learn, all of us just go, and I'm like, knowledge is the basis for growth.
True.
If people don't enjoy learning,
Mm-hmm.
they can't grow. They can't grow personally, they can't grow professionally, they can't grow the business. Can we make this more interesting? Can we make it more immersive? Can we make it more engaging? Now, like I said, I played in that space for so long, I'd noticed it consistently. And because I also knew, I'd known enough to know what would be acceptable and what would not be acceptable at all. Otherwise, if I'd come in as an outsider trying to do some things, regulations would just be pushing you out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of organizations and a lot of sectors, there's quite a lot of regulations that you're only able to work on the fringes of those regulations because you're a player. So for people that come in and say, I want to disrupt, and this is what I want to bring into the market, and you have not played in that market, you've not played in that space, unfortunately, it's your emotions that are driving you. It's not data. Because sometimes you think emotions is data.
Yeah, money did this thing.
There's
money.
Yes, there's money, so you
There's
think
money
no.
this thing.
However, what should be driving people? And oftentimes, innovation is not instant. It's incremental. Incremental in the sense that I experimented. For instance, I experimented with trying to infuse magic into learning. Now, think about it, magic. I experimented with, and it wasn't until a particular year where a big organization was letting people go during COVID, and they were letting people go during, it was a hospital, one of the major international hotels. It was in the hospitality space. COVID hit them really bad. They had to let people go not because of non-performance, but because, of course, there was no business.
Yeah.
So the tempers were high. The brief actually read, tempers are high. They don't want anything that will trigger them in a negative way, so that they don't just necessarily burn down the hotel, and that they want the exit management process to be therapeutic. When I got the brief, I said, when you mention the word trigger, tempers, therapy, you shouldn't give it to management consultant. You should go and give it to psychologists or stuff. But they said, wanted to prepare them to journey into either another career or another job or into business. So we got the brief for business. Now, in experimenting, I started leveraging human gamification and just trying out. Then we couldn't own it because we're still experimenting, saying, okay, what will it work? How will it serve us? We're iterating on the go. Then we did this gig that when we're done, a chaperone came from Oyinbo, a Caucasian came from to supervise the process to ensure that it went well.
Yeah.
When we're done with it, she called me back and said, wow, she'd not seen someone teach, business in such an interesting and enjoyable way that those people were looking forward to. They'll be fired, but they're looking forward to go. You know that, wow, that, do you know you make a fantastic business humorist? I heard the word business, I heard the word humor,
Yeah.
but I never heard the word used together. Yes, I was experimenting with humor, but I never heard that word used together. She now said, will I be willing to do that exit management process across all the other facilities in Nigeria? She now called the amount in dollars. You know, she's Oyibo, so she called the amount in dollars. You know, me, I was still thinking business humorist. The immediately I heard what in dollars, I just look at her. I say, Madam, I'm Nigeria's #1 business humorist. I don't want to argue about the concept since you say it's what I deliver already.
Yeah.
Now, it was at that point that it was the customer, the client, that validated the solution. So it is not what you think you're doing. It is not you that would say it's disruptive. It is the customer.
The market.
It's the customer that says it's disruptive. This is different. This is novel. This is so. It was. We now went back and said, okay, we see what is working. What is not working, we drop. What is not working, we drop. This part of it, it's massive. It's engaging. It's different from what is being offered. Then we created a practice out of it and called it humor-based gamified corporate education. You know, so now what we push to organizations is, you know, we have no idea who will be serving you in terms of your corporate education. But when we come in there, it is, of course, you learn, you laugh, but most of all, people are able to retain much more because of all the amazing hormones that we trigger: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And those feel-good hormones make people enjoy the experience and want to linger more in the experience and not like, oh yeah, go, do, let's go. So every time they say, oh, Crystal, that consulting about to do a job, people are excited. It's like a movie, and they are the ones playing in that movie. You know, and it's been phenomenal. Now we think about it and say, you know what? How do we enable other businesses also understand this and deploy it in their own business? So I started pursuing a PhD in strategic management and innovation because, you know, there's something that knowledge does.
Yeah.
That's why I said knowledge is amazing. It was when I started my PhD and I started realizing, wow, all of these things I'm doing, there's a framework to it. You know, you're testing it out, you're seeing it work, you're seeing what's not working, but there's a science to it. And once you understand the science, you are able to, you know, you're able to replicate it over and over and over and over again. Just like humor. Humor, yes, it might come to people, some people naturally, but humor is also a science. If you don't understand it, you can leverage it and you can deploy it. And I'm sure before I go, I can share just one.
Please do.
One of the sciences with you, and we're going to practicalize it here.
Okay.
Okay, so humor is a skill. Yes, some people can be naturally more athletic than the other, but as you as you work hard on yourself, you get better at it. And there's a structure to humor, and there are things called laughter triggers. It's a science. One of the laughter triggers is surprise. Every time somebody is surprised, you know, it triggers those emotions, those hormones I talked about: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And it is that's your biological response to it. You don't even have a choice. So let's take an example. We've been taught to learn ABC 1, 2, 3. So the laws of three is something we use a lot. We give example like this, and like that. So what we're going to do is this. We said surprise. The first one, we're going to give an example of what is right. The next one, we'll give an example of what is right. The third one, I would surprise you guys, you know, and that surprise is what elicits those hormones and it will trigger the laughter. So for instance, let's use fruits or food. Let's use food. So there are some kinds of food that you can eat at any particular time of the day and you will not gain weight. You can eat it even as late as 11 p.m. at night. Steady and you will not gain weight. Number 1 is apple. Number 2 is banana. And number 3 is fufu.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
I told you what I was going to do.
Very true.
I did it and it still triggered those And once those hormones are triggered, the natural response is laughter. Now, so we can use it for football, for instance. I know some people do sports. We can say, okay, the top 3 clubs that will most likely win the Premiership this season. I don't follow football a lot, but I know that Man City has always been a phenomenal club. I hope they are still phenomenal this season. Which other club is phenomenal again?
Arsenal.
Is Arsenal phenomenal?
Arsenal.
Because Arsenal, they say Arsenal is like a student that has fine writing but never passes an exam. He has fantastic writing but never passes
But
an
they always
exam.
come second. Arsenal, Liverpool.
Madrid.
Okay, let's say Champions League. Yeah, we're doing Champions League. Okay. So Man City, Real Madrid. Then let's mention maybe Shooting Stars.
Yeah.
It's a football club, but it's a surprise. Like, shooting what? Shooting where?
Yeah.
You see, it's a science. Every time, if once you understand the science, you can get the result. So if we can break things down into the most basic structure of it, you are able to, achieve the same results that people that leverage it achieve. That's the same with disruption. If you understand the science of it and you follow it, it may not be 100%, but at least we did 2 now.
Yeah.
And we got, I think we got like 70% chocolate. That's fine. That's fine. So that science of disruption, there's a science to it. It's not emotion though. It's a science. Once you understand the science, you can achieve results.
Can we have a case study? So, for instance, would this be me putting you on the spot? But let's take a look at what MoneyPoint is doing.
Okay.
If you look at MoneyPoint, you look at OPay.
Okay.
OPay was actually there were so many odds against OPay. Policies, you see how they came into the country, and then they still, despite that, they were able to still withstand the storm and still conquer the market.
Okay.
Especially as regards fintech. In banking, I'm not even categorizing them as fintech anymore.
Yes.
Because almost everywhere you go, business, you go to some top businesses, ask them for their account number, you're hearing OPay or MoneyPoint. And I'm like, how did these guys disrupt? It doesn't look like they went for the unbanked. They still disrupted the banked majority. Because the people who have MoneyPoint and OPay, they still have the traditional bank account if you further investigate. It's not that they went to the villages to get people.
I love this question.
Yes.
I love this.
So
Frank, you will make heaven. Do anyhow, you still make heaven. Yes.
What really happened?
Fantastic.
I like that kind of that disruption.
Yes. So, like we said, it is unmet needs or underserved needs. One major need that was not met by a lot of traditional banks for market retailers was the fact that every time somebody does a transfer to you, there's a gap between when the person does the transfer and when the person receives notification. It's a major issue. Major. If you go to Saleko, it's a major issue.
I go see my alert before you leave.
Yes, so that's how you sit down. And you see somebody sitting down for like 4 hours. You say, "Me o koko elejide o, e go ele lobby koko." And so it's a major issue. And so that's unmet need, underserved need. Yes, they serve them, they meet that need, but it is not met as at the time, because it's an urgent need. There are 4 things that people should look out for when they want to disrupt. Is it a need that is unavoidable? The person doesn't have what to do with it. You can't, especially if it's a policy need. If government says, if you play in this sector, you must audit your business. The business doesn't have a choice. They have to get auditors. Yeah, true. Then is it an underserved need? We've talked about that. Then is it an urgent need? For that one, it's urgent. And there's when you also look at the market must be a huge and expanding one. What do I mean? You must find a market that is increasing and not shrinking. So they found a lot of people that run businesses that requires to confirm value immediately. That was lacking. And so at the point when there was there was cash crunch, and there was also a situation where people said, okay, we are not able to do cash. Now let's do. Well, we have to go transfers, but you transfer. I'm not getting value. These guys came in and sorted that. Have you seen how fast people get their notifications?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Instantly.
So now a lot of salary earners don't need it. Yes, a lot of salary earners don't need money point, don't need OPay, don't. But if you're into retail, and you walk into a restaurant, there's a chain of people, buying your food, and you need to, get paid, and need to confirm value immediately. Would you rather stick with the traditional banks that somebody has finished eating, he has gone to his house, then you now realize that or you go with the one that you're sure that you get it immediately, and so that was what was disruptive. You see that underserved need of not getting just in time notification was where they came in. That's how they plugged in. You see how it looks so basic, but
Yeah,
it looks
true.
so.
Yeah,
Yes.
for me, it's a light bulb moment, like
Yeah.
underserved need. You don't need to come in with fancy technologies.
No.
We had a guy here. He's a real estate guy,
Yeah.
and he said that we spend so much time trying to build a business. That if you want to if you want to build a business, just take a bus to do a leg and just tell them enter.
Your boss be filled up.
Want to be built up.
In no time.
You don't need website to start the road transportation. But moving on, let's talk about the management consulting space.
Okay, sir.
I'll come like this. If you have all the answers as a consultant, why don't you start your own business?
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. So, for some few consultants, like for me, management consulting is one of the businesses I run. I actually do believe in the concept of biomimicry when it comes to finance. There's dew, there's rain. I would advise every business owner, startup, small business, focus on the dew of your business, because the frequency of cash flow is more important than the volume. So I have dew business, I have rain business, then I have flood, because sometimes the frequency of the dew is so much and the volume is so much, it becomes rain, or the frequency of the rain increases and it becomes flood. Okay, so that being said, but you must also now realize that I'll take an average, because I play in academia. When I was going to do when I applied for my first PhD, I applied to university. I'm not going to call the name because I'm not going to say something too good about it. When I'm saying something good, I mention your name. So I applied and I met the professor that was going to be my supervisor, and he asked me, am I doing a PhD to become a lecturer? And I said no. And he said, then why am I doing a PhD? I said, because I love knowledge. I want to understand what it is I'm going into to understand it properly. And he was a professor of entrepreneurship. So I asked him, sir, so what's your opinion about, when did you register? I said, when did you register your first business? He said he has never registered a business in his life. I said, you're a professor of entrepreneurship, and he has never, ever registered a business in his life. And I was running a business, and I knew how sometimes you just wake up and ask yourself, who sent me? Who sent me? And until you get to that point, you've not even started. And he now explained some things to me and said, for those of them in academia, research about that practice of entrepreneurship, they've immersed themselves so much in it that they have a broad base understanding that you don't even have the time as a business person to go find out that information. So, for instance, Philip Kotler, who is the father of marketing, Peter Drucker, who is the father of management, Clayton Christensen, who is the father of disruption. Now, all of those guys, we call them the father of management. because of the level of research, of effort they put into understanding a concept to the point whereby when you are having a challenge, they understand the pre, the post, and the situation you are in, and they're able to advise accordingly. So I said that because management consulting comes at so many levels. And the one you're talking about is advisory. That why are you advising? Why don't you practice? But there's also management consulting of outsourcing, meaning I'm so good at it, I'm not going to advise you. Give it to me. I'm going to do it for you. Do you get my point?
Yeah.
Yes. So that part of management consulting, which is advice, is what it is you're talking about. Just like when I talked to you about coaching, where everybody is telling you someone has never been married before in her entire life, and she's telling you she's a married coach. And don't worry, in marriage, you have to be emotionally intelligent. And I told Frank, you are married now. Yes. Are you married, sir?
No.
Okay. So, Frank, you understand that. When you just get to a point, you just ask yourself,
Who sent me?
how, where, when, who, where, wow.
Yeah.
Do you understand? And everybody in marriage gets to that point. Now, but someone that's not been married, teaches you all of these things, doesn't realize that when push comes to shove, it's a totally different ballgame. The only thing is that you cannot outsource your marriage to the person. But there's a part of consulting that is advisory. And yes, for people to advise, there's a need for research. And the research is not just based on your organization, it's based on the industry. It's based on global best practices. They are understudying a lot of things that you don't have the time to understudy. Do you understand? So they will tell you, don't go that route. This one has gone that route, it didn't work. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Because they have done extensive research on it that you as a business owner don't have that time to do it. And sometimes when they've done it well enough and they trust their onions, they will say, give it to us. That's what is called outsourcing. We will do it for you.
Let's talk about a few dues. I remember one time I was having a conversation with you a long time ago. I don't know if you remember. It was at a basement, at a car park.
Yes,
a basement.
yes,
I parked beside you.
Yes.
We had very lengthy conversation. Your car was switched on ultra, I remember. And you were explaining the concept of due, rain, and storm and flood to me. Explain a few of your dues, like how you transitioned from management consulting, went into branding and fashion, and you've been doing crazy numbers. I don't want to just but then it's something you hardly see in consulting, where people get their hands dirty, and you're someone like that. You I remember when you were explaining that you even go to your factory.
Yes.
You go to your guys. Sometimes you check to the detail of what they're sewing. Let's go into
let me
that.
give you an example.
Yeah.
On this particular day, I did something with a company called Powton Morgan.
Okay.
Churchgate
Yeah, I
Towers.
know Powton Morgan.
So I dressed properly as a management consultant and
Yeah.
everything. When I was done, I went into Lagos Highland. I needed to get some things, so I changed in the car and I was out. And I don't know, it was around closing time, so somebody was from the training now met me at some point in Lagos Island, and I was not looking like, and I was wondering, wait, I'm sorry, sir, 1 minute. You know all those people that come and say 1 minute in Lagos, 1 minute, sir. I'm sorry, but you look like someone that just did something for us in our organization.
Yeah.
I said, yes. I said, because that is one cap I wear. This is another cap I wear. So, how did the live your best life thing start out? So I'd worked in.
Here you go. Live your best life.
I'd worked in corporate education. I'd worked in public sector. I'd worked in private sector. The last place of engagement was public sector. I was head of training of a public sector, and I felt this thing I feel is wrong with learning and development. Let's try it out, man. And of course, how some people are, no, let's do it exactly the way we've been doing it. This is not the place to be experimenting, So I said,
especially public sector.
How you take no? And so I said, okay, let me try this thing out. Let's see how it goes. I was still young. I was well read. Anyhow it goes, I'll go back if it doesn't work. So I started out, and I remembered that was trying out some stuff, getting some gigs, trying out some things. But I was scared because I didn't used to put a price tag to it. Because I wanted to ensure that, they say in Yoruba that "Kosapo lankowo," meaning somebody offers you money. You don't say no, you just take it and go and deploy. It's a service anyways. So I just kept on. Then I got this particular brief one day, international organization, and I sent them the proposal, and they looked at it and said, "Wow, this is different from every other thing they've gotten," and that will I be willing to? How much will I? I couldn't. I was scared because I didn't want them to go.
Yeah.
I was really scared. So whatever they offer, I would take, as long as it covers the major things. So I couldn't talk. And they kept on, at some point, remember the country manager just called me and said, "We're having this strategy retreat a few days, and you've not given us a price. You know what? This is the amount we've pegged on it. Is it a go?" You don't want to have an idea. I said, like, I did, sir. When he mentioned it again, I'm like, okay. He works. When I caught the call, I called my wife, Moti Shogun. Meaning, I've done blood money. Like, what? I didn't imagine that what I was doing, like I was just trying out stuff, just trying new things, trying to see how it would work, could be valued in hours to that tune. So I just told myself, I'm going to be paid to do this that I enjoy because it fits into my inclinations and my interests. And I told myself, man, I am living my best life. So I just printed, "Live your best life" on tees and on the cap because I couldn't even write "Live your best life." I wrote LYBL on the cap. And I remember that I took the picture, I think after church one day, and I just posted on social media. And now, because before leaving my paid employment, I was always talking about my guys, about how we can make this thing better, we can reinvent it. I was always telling my people, it was always like, your own is,
You own too much.
you own too much.
You own too much.
Baba, as I posted it just now, it was because now I was more confident. When you have Baba, I was now more confident because I saw that this thing can become this. This can become this. So I now did a few. I said, man, guys, there's life prefers to give you wisdom when it has robbed you of your strength. We must live in that consciousness every day of our lives. We must live our best lives, And I just put that up there. And, people from my former place always say, "I think it's this clothes that is doing the magic. Baba, give me car. Baba, give me tea. Baba, give me this. Baba, give me that." And they start making orders. And, I started responding to the orders and saying, "Okay, how do we?" Then it started spreading and spreading. Like I said, I never called price, even for it's the corporate that says this is our budget. And the budget is way more than whatever it is I would have thought. Because how much was I earning? I was earning how much then? Maybe 80K per month? Or 100K, thereabouts.
What year?
Can't remember. So it was like
Miles away.
But was that a confirmation that you're on the right path?
So so it wasn't just it was firstly the feedbacks. The feedbacks that, okay, this was different, this was unique, they've never experienced something like this. It was different, it was unique, they've never experienced something like this. And it took a while to be profitable, sincerely. Because, like I said, we're just reiterating on the move, just trying. And that's why I shout out to amazing spouses. If you have a spouse that supports you. Because when I was going on that journey, my wife just said, "You know what? I believe what you're doing. I trust you. I've got your back." I'm sure I always tell you that.
Yeah, true.
I've got your back. You'll figure it out. And she spent a decade in the bank. When the business group required to you, it was, and I said, "What am I still doing here?" He said, "When you've already, we can see that you are doing well." So it's that belief that I am on the right track. But it must not just come from just you. It must be people telling you, this is different.
True.
This is different. This is unique. This works. We've had different people, but this is just. And so always ensure that your innovation must be different but must be different in such a way that it is relevant to the end users. Because if it's different but it's not relevant, you must be credible enough to deliver it over, to deliver on it over and over and over and over and over again. And at some point, you just realize that people are noticing. Because, like I said, maybe this is the first time I'm talking about this publicly.
Yeah.
First time, you know. Every gig we've ever gotten has been based on referrals and recommendation. We don't market, we don't make noise. We've just been in the background, we're fine-tuning this practice, fine-tuning it. And I think it's about time we get announced, you know. Because what else should confirm that you're doing a fantastic job when they check your clientele and they see some of the biggest brands, you know, in not just even in Nigeria, across the world.
Yeah.
What else again to prove to you that you're on the right path? So why I see a lot of people making a lot of noise, you know, but the grind should actually be that you're focused. Don't be I read that somewhere yesterday. In the words of Jeff Bezos, don't be a mercenary when it comes to what it is you're building. Don't just want to make money out of it quickly. You know, you could do like an assassin and just move on. Be a missionary. Stay the course. Build. Make it so valuable, but valuable in a different way. So for a lot of people, it's working that difference into their offering that is the challenge. You know, because if it's not different, you won't get the attention that you're looking for.
There's a reservation I have about consulting, and I've always said that businesses that literally take over the world are businesses that can scale.
Okay.
Consulting is difficult to scale, not impossible. I would have said impossible if I've not seen prototype. The EY, PwC, the big fours, you know them. What's the other? Deloitte.
Yes.
And
KPMG.
KPMG.
Yes.
Thank you. So those big fours, they've been able to scale consulting, and it's billions of dollars industry. Forgotten the actual figure, Patrick, but David said it one time. I watched one of his episode that he talked about. He unraveled the gold mine in consulting. It's so massive an industry. But what is it about this part of this world, especially global south in Nigeria, where it's difficult to scale because you are the face of the brand, and if let's take for instance, if let's say the telcos, the top 4 or 3 telcos in this country, if all of them need you the same day, they need you to consult for them, run a training for their, let's say, R&D or L&D for their staff members the same day, same time. You can't do it. So that is one thing about scale. It's you can't. It's difficult to scale. It used to be like that in the music industry, where a Davido cannot perform same event, cannot perform on 4 different stages per time. But now innovation and tech brought in scale. What do I mean? Streaming. So I can stream Davido, you can stream, everybody can stream per time. And that literally broke the gene of scaling
but
in the music
Davido
industry.
cannot be on 2 stages per time.
Yeah, he still can't be on 2 stages. He still can't be.
time.
But what I'm just saying is,
Yes, I get you.
another innovation came into the picture and broke that jinx of a music artist not being able to scale. And so, what is it about consulting is being so difficult? If not because of your product, like your LYBL brand, and you're doing, we're going to go into that. What you're doing with that brand is so crazy. Let's talk about scaling consulting.
Okay, so you know, quite a number of different models exist. When it comes to consulting, but you must also realize that all the businesses you've called, EY is somebody's name. McKinsey is somebody's name.
Sure.
Bain and Company is somebody's name.
Yeah.
Anyone you call is people's name. KPMG is people's names. So these were the people that started those businesses. But now, just Google how old some of these practices are. They are old enough to have been able to build, you know, some sort of standard operating procedure around what it is that they do, and they can take that and export it into different, you know, spaces. However, Tom Peters, who was with McKinsey, you know, Tom Peters is one of the. It was the the writer-up in search for excellence, and he came up with a concept called there used to be professional service firms, PSFs, which are consulting firms. Now there's the concept of professional service individuals. Do you understand? And those professional service individuals are boutique consulting firms. However, it is built around the individual, you know. And for some reason, some people are not interested. And I'm serious. How do I mean? So let me give you a name of somebody that comes to mind, and I ask myself, how is this person going to cope after he's gone? You know? Okay, well, I'm not saying something. I'm not going to say his name. And he told me, that him was not interested in after he's gone. He just wanted to make enough impact, you know, use the influence and income he's building to make impact and build like wants to build like a center for children with so kind of issues, and that is all. It's in that his legacy would subsist and not in what he does. Do you understand? So for instance, think about it. I'm thinking of a comedian that died from what's his name? I've forgotten his name. But he's gone now. The only way we have access to him is through his materials online.
Yeah.
So in the same way, a lot of consulting firms have digital products. By all means, that is not it's steady. A lot of digital products. However, for some professional service individuals, what they now do is partnerships. You know, and say, okay, E is one person, Y is another person. They come together and say, okay, how can we make this bigger and more sustainable?
Yeah.
So yes, one of the ways to do that is partnerships, collaborations, and if you look at it, even look at Nigerian consultancy.
Philips.
No, I want to talk about Akitola Williams Deloitte.
Oh yeah.
Yes. We know Akitola Williams, we know Deloitte.
Very true.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Yes. So I believe that we're going to get to those points in Nigeria where, and we're already getting there, where people will say, okay, you know what, Lalaa Consulting, we like what you do, but I don't want to grow this thing to the point where I can't grow it anymore. There's a point I can get to. I say, okay, you know what, which innovation company out there is willing? But it's better to you have built it to a point.
Sure.
Because if you don't build it to a point, what's your valuation?
Yeah.
What's your valuation?
Very
So
true.
build it to a point, then say, okay, we've built it to this point. Now let's do some kind of collaboration.
Is LYBL a product of your consulting firm?
So yes,
It's like you productize it.
It's a trademark
Okay.
owned by Lalaa Consulting. And you know, the concept of due and reign is so important, because if we understand it, we will see why organizations, individuals have to productize.
Please explain it.
So if you look at the food chain, at the base of the food chain is vegetation. Herbivores eat vegetation, carnivores eat herbivores. The food chain is sustained, the entire life on earth is sustained by vegetation. What sustains vegetation when it comes to how they survive? It's majorly sunlight and nutrients from the soil.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what makes those nutrients soluble? Water. Where do they get their water from? People will say rain, people will say different things. Now, research has proven that it is dew that sustains vegetation and not rain. The dew that falls on a daily basis. It is small, but it is sure. It's very small, but it is very sure. Now, if what sustains the entire universe is held by dew and not rain, because it doesn't rain every day.
True.
At all. In fact, there are times for
Yes.
weeks, seasons, it might not even
Months.
rain. Months,
Yeah.
it might not rain. But the frequency of dew is more certain than rain. So for businesses, we advise, now this is management consulting, that build your cash flow much more around, small businesses especially, around dew than rain. Dew than rain. The volume, the frequency of the income is more important than the volume of the income.
Let me explain it to people that are not posh. That small bread with the corn, hold on tight.
Take. Yes. Because you know what? The bills are daily. Yes or no?
Yeah.
The bills are daily. Your bills will not wait. In fact, you know, if you're a
Somebody was
salary now,
explaining this thing that
Your-
1K. You don't know that your 1K you're spending every day.
the bills doesn't wait and say until you wake up.
Yeah.
As you're sleeping, your data is going. That's the bill. As you're sleeping, band-aid is draining you.
You were saying it in my head. Daily bread.
Daily bread. So when the Bible says, you know, give us this day our daily bread, we're talking about due. You know, because once you have your daily bread met,
you can dream.
You can dream.
You can dream.
Now, person where they don't chop
Chop
belle
like
food go
they
say,
dream.
okay, I have a future. Future what? What?
You can dream.
You can
I
dream
understand
when you've met.
perfectly.
So we tell businesses, focus on ensuring that you see that due is catered to, and that due is to meet your, you know, your daily obligations, your reoccurring expenditure. Because you see, even if you make 50 million, it comes in today is September 26. You're making 50 million. It comes in September 26, but you don't make another one till next year. A bank will not do business
That's
with you.
real, yeah.
Because I got a call. How did I find out this? I got a call from a bank, and I was shocked at when they said that I had access to a loan, and I could just on my app, you know, press enter, and I'm like, fraud. How? Who does that? No collateral loan. And when they called the account where you know, I probably didn't have up to 4,000 in that account at that moment. And I was telling them, it's not possible. I don't have money in this account. And the lady the guy on the other end said, the algorithm has shown that you don't have money there now. Doesn't mean that, you know,
bread won't come.
That the algorithm has shown it. It's clear. And so from the comfort of my house, you know, I was thinking, is it a traditional bank or is it a traditional bank? You know, and I did it. So they didn't look at your rain. Oh, they're not concerned about it. Because if you're not careful, you see that rain falls today, 10 million falls today, and that 10 million does not enter the next year, 26. You'll see your period.
Just to share more light on this, I have a mentor and a friend. He owns an oil and gas firm. So what they do is that once you supply the tank, they lift it to the tank and they supply the whole Nigeria.
Okay.
And they will first of all go and ballot with NNPC. For NNPC to supply them and the rest. And in the past 1 year, NNPC hasn't done any major supply to them. But look at where he did. Look at where the smartness came in. He now built a business model with one of the biggest cement factory. Supply them with trucks, and now they are doing daily cash flow. You could track his daily cash flow. And one of his truck ran into. If you watch this thing, you come here and say you have started talking about my matter. One of his truck ran into a chef in the cement factory, and to build that was almost 98 to 100 million. He shared me the invoice, and I was like, "How do you want to do? Do you want to pull out of the business?" He said, "No, I just want the transaction to keep flowing in my bank account. We will repair it for them. We will work out a payment method for them that they will collect the money and will repair it for them." And you put my head like, you guys find your bread first.
Then
before
before rain.
Then you start balloting big contracts.
Big contracts. And is that big contracts, is those big the rain you now use to scale. Because if you don't have bulk money, when bulk money comes, and you know how sometimes your account is just like a conduit. Because there's a lot of expenditure you've not settled. The moment 5 million enters your account, boom! There's nothing left. But when you've sorted all of your daily expenditure and you're sure that for the next, 10, 15, 20 days, I'm not going to be owing anybody. I don't have to pay anything. When money comes, you can now tell yourself, what do I want to do with this money? This is money I want to use to buy this next machine. This is what I'm going to use to buy this. Otherwise, a lot of people will just realize that they are making income, but it's not. It's just based on subsistence. Survivor.
That's why most corporate people, they get a job,
and
they're still balloting for contract elsewhere.
True.
So they can use that contract, leave and stuff like that.
And it's very important.
It's so profound.
It is. And you know what is funny? You don't have to, if you have inclinations, you can build this due rain flood thing based on your inclinations. So naturally I'm a stylish person. I don't struggle to do it.
Yeah.
So it's, but if it was something that was not in my line of interest,
Yeah.
I might have struggled to pull it through.
Sure.
But because it is something I personally take pleasure in doing, so it makes it easier. Should I now bust your brain? Now, so as I do this for my brand, people come into the office and say, "Wow, I like this. Can you also do it for my business?" Yes. So supplied water bottles, supplied gears, supplied for as many businesses.
If you see his car,
And I don't push it. But once we do it for ourselves and you see it, you like it, we do it for your
I
business.
already said that this bottle.
We do it for your business. The gears we're rocking, we do it for businesses. So we make uniforms, we make sportwears, we make all sorts of things. We make factory gear because it's the same machines that make everything. So we have the infrastructure now. In building this, we've collected infrastructure to do it not just for ourselves, but do it for so many other people. So, and that's why it's an interesting journey. But until you start this journey, you have no idea what can unfold. That's why I tell you, yes, management consulting is one arm of the business. But if you assume that it is,
I'm in the same shoe. I run a marketing agency, and 3 months, nothing don't show. But we get where they see the bread
yes,
from. That one, and
that bread, that bread, logistics, the cost of logistics, the cost of band A,
Now,
the cost
nobody
of
go here say contract never come.
yes. By the time you now are married and with kids, the daughter will just look at you. You just say, "How do you do pizza?" Just be wondering, how did it come out of? Do you know what we are in? They don't care.
They don't.
So you must ensure that, and as long as you're able to meet those needs, as I mentioned those dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. Those are the good hormones. They are bad hormones. When you are in need and you are lacking and you can't meet your needs, those negative hormones are triggered. They don't do well with you. They don't do. You can't make the right decisions.
Value.
You can't think straight. Somebody will be asking you the road to Lekki, be pointing the road to Yanopaja.
Valid, man. Especially if you have bills.
My brother, it is real.
But moving on, let's talk about small businesses. What do you think we struggle with in present day Nigeria? 80% of my friends are small business owners, and I see the
Now,
pain.
81. I've just mentioned 81%. Ask me.
81%, and I see the pains in their eyes. Like they don't know what to do. They don't have the education. That's why we started this podcast.
Yeah.
They don't have the education. They don't know where to go and source for the next thing. And you can see yourself, you get so comfortable in that small business loop that to pull out becomes, I don't know what else to do. How do small business go from owning one shop to 10 shops in 3-4 years? What advice would you give?
So, in the line of the gears that we make and the mesh, and I learned this from my Igbo brothers. There's one of them, Ima. I know when Ima was learning, the fabric business. I knew when he did his, what do you call that thing? Freedom, And I saw how Ima was in that one shop. And it was almost as if he was living in that shop. It was almost as if he was living in that shop. He cut his cost to the barest minimum. The life he had was in that shop. He would rather put money into products, fabric, than buy good clothes for himself or buy good phones for himself. When it comes to his lifestyle, it was the basic. But when it comes to the business, he put everything into it. And I saw that in 5 years, he was able to take that one shop and expand it into another one and expand it to another one. Because the Lau, there was no Lau. He himself, there was zero Lau. He had put everything into the business to first stabilize the business, then scale the business. Because it's what has stabilized that you can scale. Once it's not stabilized, you can't scale. Or otherwise, you'll be scaling garbage. So I saw the way that he was so focused on stabilizing that particular business and putting all energy and all effort. So one, delayed gratification. You, in our part of the world, we don't have, maybe that's why funders will tell you this is for the business, this is for you. Because they know that if they don't give the one for you, it's the one from the business that you use to survive.
True.
Which is the truth. And a lot of us are late starters. Late starters in the sense that there's a period when people are supposed to endeavor some things. By the time you are married, have 4 kids, you now want to start out. You see that family, there's a quality of life they are used to. And you can't make them sort of, fall below that quality of life.
True.
So it's a struggle. So the earlier, it is good for a man to bear his body when he is young. When you are able to defer gratification because it's just you. And secondly, Ima is also in close proximity with his Oga, which is innovation, because mentorship is major. Innovation has done it. All he needed to do was understudy the process, because apparently that's also the way the guy did his own. His Oga did his own, and he saw it work. That is why you see that apprenticeship system that the Igbos have. It is phenomenal. It is phenomenal. They've cracked it.
Yeah.
They've cracked startup. They've cracked scaling, and they don't even do technology.
They don't even have time for it.
They don't do technology, but they've cracked it so well. And you know how somebody will tell you he has trained 8 boys, in 10 years. Some business schools have not produced.
Not 8 boys, so 8 multi-millionaires.
Thank you. Some business schools have not produced what those people have produced.
True.
So I tell people, get close to your Igbo trader friends. Get close to them. They have things that your business schools will not teach you. It's what I learned from these people, from the trade floor, that I see and say, oh, now because I'm pursuing a PhD, I'm able to turn this into a framework, and deploy it. These guys have cracked it.
And they didn't even do it from the educational
And they
standpoint.
didn't do it. No.
That's what you're saying now. No tech.
No tech.
No tech, nothing.
They
just take a
they
box
were-
to do a leg. People were
they were just reiterating on the move, and okay, this works, okay, this one doesn't work, let's push it aside. You know how somebody, for instance, says, okay, let me share one with you. One of the things they teach you in sales, if you do sales training, is how you can close a deal even before it starts. Our Igbo boys have mastered it. You walk past a shop and you just pick something, maybe a fabric, and the person says 10 yards. I'm still observing, and he's suggesting to me now 10 yards. So, like, even if you want 100 yards, I have it. He's not asking you like him. Do you understand? He's not saying, do you like it?
He's not giving you options.
Is this your color? He's just telling you how many yards.
He has assumed that he bought it.
He has programmed you in one way to just say that he's buying, you are buying this one.
Let me now make it go further. You now say, no, I'm just looking at it. Come, I'll give you discount.
And even when you say, I want it in blue, you say, I don't, but let me go to my second shop.
Yeah, let me
How
go
many of them have second shops?
Come,
No, do we have somebody documenting all of this
Nah.
and turn it into a SOP? A standard operating procedure. And even from them, you also see service level agreement. How someone will tell you, there are some guys in Lagos Island, they don't own any shops. They don't own any shop, but there's a service level agreement that once I bring somebody into the shop, once the person comes with me,
My commission did there.
this is the price.
Also here.
Yes.
Kelechi, this podcast has ended. We're going on.
You said the dash.
As in, it is, who is documenting all of this? And they have an agreement. They know. For those of us that do business with them, when you come in, they won't talk then. They will not be using a calculator to press price for you. Because a Jew that doesn't know how it's going
Is there.
And we can't say you saw.
Nigeria business
You know-
landscape is ghetto.
It's ghetto. But these guys have figured it out.
Yeah.
How come we're not taking notice of? We're not taking notes of it and documenting it to make it, put it into a curriculum that can be trained and taught rather in our schools. They are saying business school. You have no idea the level of business happening in Ladipo, happening in Computer Village, happening in Shomolu.
Alaba.
Those Alaba.
Aba.
That is business school extraordinaire. Business school extraordinaire. Someone now say, I finished from University of Lagos. I read banking and finance. Go and start a bank now. You know how people have an MBA and they don't they have a master's in business administration, but their mental bank account zero.
My friend went to Australia to study MBA.
Yeah.
And okay, you're done now. MBA, big dog. Yeah. What do you want to do? I don't know.
Oh my, we'll have a lot. We'll have a part two.
Go to a guy that's just been spent 6 months.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
In Otigba, Computer Village. That guy is making he is in his organ shop legally. Legally. He's not doing, he has just understudied the process, he has found the loophole that he can cash out on. And his organ will just say, make I give you free and you say make more money now.
Oh my. We have a lot to really talk about. This we'll have a part two. The only problem is that it is just for 1 hour. Sometimes we have spillovers. The Frankly Business Podcast, you know, real value around business. What you need to understand, the ABC, not just ABC, but up to Z, and you've seen how much of a value you can get from the informal sector, just from the Alaba market, just from our Igbo brothers and sisters, people who understand what it takes to get your hands dirty. I want to say a very big thank you. Thank you for coming to the business, to the Frankly Business Podcast.
Thank you.
Coach Lala, thank you for coming.
I
wanted to, sorry. Oh my goodness.
PhD in view.
Okay, so on the final note, we have a culture where you mention somebody you want on this famous couch and you ask the person a question. When the person comes, that will be the first question we'll ask the person. So who do you want us to have a friendly business session on the Frankly Business Podcast?
Quite a number of people comes to mind.
One person in particular that you want us to have.
Okay, so somebody that comes to mind is somebody that I absolutely am thrilled by his audacity. You know, his audacity for what he does, how he does it. And that would be Niya Desanya.
Oh, wow.
You know, he's very audacious, very audacious. Very, very audacious. And one question is, the question would be, where does the audacity come from? Is it the Holy Spirit or the other spirit?
All right. Niya Desanya. Sir, you've heard from a gentleman over here, and he's asking, where exactly did your audacity come from? Because it looks like you're very audacious in the world of business. I see you seal up arenas that superstars use, but you fill up that venue with executives and you train them. It takes an audacious mind to be able to do that. That is it on this episode of the Frankly Business Podcast. Kelechi, what do you have to say to your MSME friend to go learn from your Igbo brothers and sisters? What one thing they should go learn? And we'll round off.
They should all their social media platform. They should be following top executives on their social media platform, and they should leave women alone.
All right, that's it. Until the next episode, I see you at the other side of the Frankly Business Podcast. Like, share, comment, and also join the Growth Hub community. We share top tech jobs, top jobs, different fundraising opportunities, and you get ideas as to what is really happening in the world of business. Cheers.